everyone for joining the webinar, the town hall. This is my first one as the Maddie's Director of Human Animal Support Services. My name is Vincent Medley. I took this position in late September, so I've been part of the project for 5 months, and we thought at HASS that at Human Animal Support Services that this would be a good time to have a town hall, get to know, for you to get to know me, ask me questions, and then also we have a panel of really great speakers from our pilot organization project that we are currently using as our proof of concept of the HASS approach and community-oriented approach or community-based approach. And so we wanted you to hear from them. We're gonna have a real light, fun conversation about some really serious things. And also as part of this process too, if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. And then also, if you, when there will be a time for question and answers for you to unmute and ask a question of us, and me in particular, or the panelists as well. So in order for you to be part of, or to join what we believe is this project, but also we believe it's a movement, that it encompasses all of us in animal welfare. And so our approach, which I'll talk to you a little bit about, is that this approach is about all of us. It's not us dictating or determining what the answers are to some of the biggest problems in the industry. It's all of us working on those problems together. For those of you that are new to HASS and don't know how to get involved with the movement, if one of my folks, Aaron or Sarah, if you will put our website link in the chat where you can sign up to be a partner organization with Human Animal Support Services, and also you will be able to peruse our website, look and see what we have. Toolkits, we have a lot of history on that website that I think would be really interesting for you to watch. Videos, blogs. There's a lot of educational information for a professional who is looking to find out what HASS is all about, and what we do in terms of and how we impact the industry, and how we want to partner. And that's our thing, is that we want to partner no matter what. So I'll get into just what we're about as HASS. The purpose of the Human Animal Support Services project is to transform the industry from an isolated system to a true member of the human services network. This is important because it addresses the root cause of pet homelessness and aligns our work with the current societal resource gaps. And this is important because one of the things that we've come to understand is that looking at the issues that we are really facing every day with whether it be a shelter, whether you be a rescue group, looking at it from that lens is a really small piece of the world. That's the first thing. There's a gigantic world outside of the shelter, outside of our animal welfare bubble that will inform us better as to how do we solve some of the problems that we all collectively are dealing with. And that's really because, you know, the real resource and the real center of what we are about is the human being, and supporting that human being and putting that human being, whether it's connecting them with a resource or being the resource, assisting them in ways that will allow them to keep animals, the pets that they love, with them in their family. But we can't do that if we only come from the animal angle. Um, so our approach, we believe, is an industry-wide approach, and my team here at Human Animal Support Services is here to facilitate those that are on the front lines, all of you that are working out in the shelters, so that it is an industry-built transformation that is led by all of us. We want to walk hand in hand with you. We don't care about credit. All we care about is addressing the issues that are affecting you all, whether you work in a shelter, whether you're a pet owner, whether you are one of our rescue partners. We want to help. We want to work with you to support you and helping solve the problems from a community level. The other thing I want to tell you is that, you know, we follow the same idea that this country was founded on. This country was founded on of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that's what we're all about. That's why we ask you to join our movement. Well, actually, our movement is everybody's movement, and to join the HASS, be part of the HASS platform and the HASS project, because we really want this to be something. You know, HASS was created, and this was before I became the project director. HASS was created from a thought, or thoughts that came from the industry. Before I even started working for as the Human Animal Support Services project director, it was a buzz. I mean, I left the industry and came back, and here it is. And a lot of things that before I left the industry, we talked about, HASS has embodied. We're testing and measuring. So the question is, how are we helping with this transformation? How are we facilitating this transformation? We're testing and measuring community-centered programs in our 20 pilot organizations. We have a pilot program where we have more than 20 pilot shelters that are testing not only HASS products and projects, and by products I mean things that or practices and programs that we look at are as things that will help a shelter. And then also we also are working with those individual shelters to maximize the programs and the projects they currently have going on within their shelter, so that they are representative as a shelter of what their community needs are and what their government needs are. And we want to make sure that they are able to satisfy those government needs and the community needs based on, you know, there's one thing to be based on industry best practices, but there's a more complete way to do it, is to go from the community level, government level, and then to the best practices in the industry, so that there's an understanding of what these different community needs are and what the different government priorities are, what their performance matrix and key performance indicators are. We want to look at all of that before we step in and say, well, this is what you should do. We're building a collective voice for change and shedding light on our industry's biggest problems, and fostering an environment where we all find solutions, which is one of the things HASS was created based on, using working groups. And a lot of you that are on this call were part of the working groups. We are definitely looking at how do we re-engage the working groups, revive the working groups, and in many cases highlight what the work from the working groups, what came out of those working groups, and then also how do we use those, you know, to solve those big industry problems. And we know we have ones that may have already been solved, but so for some of the new problems that are emerging in this COVID recovery period, which a lot of people think we were in COVID and now we're post-COVID, but I feel like we are in a COVID recovery phase, because a lot of things changed during COVID, and we're still we're still learning and understanding what changed and how we can be present with the time and be a project that meets the time where it is. We also facilitate the transformation by developing technological tools that can accelerate our industry's growth into the future we collectively envision. And by collectively, we mean all of you, us all walking hand in hand as a team, as one force of nature. And then we're also muscling the path to insert human services into our work. It is so imperative that we get outside of the box of looking at how do we assist this animal and remove obstacles from this animal that has ended up in our shelter. When the reality is there's a person that animal loves that we could be supporting and assisting. And it doesn't have to happen from your organization's level. It may be you partnering with an agency and being part of a larger task force, or getting outside of the shelter and the animal welfare world and learning what the human services world, social service world is all about, so that we can be better members of the community. Because whether you're a government agency or a nonprofit, that's what we are. We all are human beings, and we all are part of a larger community that we want to, that I know that we want to make better for the people that and the families that are in the community, and 70% of those families, based on surveys, have animals, have a pet of some type, which even exceeds the number of households that have children. I think it's 50% of American families have children, but 70% of American households have a pet. So with that, that's pretty much what HASS is all about. I didn't want to run you through a long presentation because I wanted to get into our panel, but I will stop right now in case anybody has a question. And okay, so what I'll do then, okay, so let me introduce our, or I will ask the panel to introduce themselves, and then we're just going to get into a discussion about the Human Animal Support Services project and what they're doing in their communities to make a difference, where they see this movement and our project as it is presently, and what they see the possibilities for the project and for their own communities for the future. So we will start with a brief introduction from Jorge. Why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Vincent. Hello, everyone. My name is Jorge Ortega. I am the Animal Services Director for Guilford County Animal Services. We are in Greensboro, North Carolina. Almost dead smack in the middle of the state. Our organization joined HASS at the beginning as a concept. And a couple of points that I want to make from what Vincent said. We have to remain human focused. Without humans, we can't really solve the animal challenges that we face every day. The HASS concept, I guess we've all had an idea of what we wanted that human animal support services function to look like, or the concept to look like. Now it's actually being formed into something that's organized and it has purpose, has process, has flows. So that I think is the beauty or the great thing about HASS, is just bringing us all together in a organized fashion, so we're all staying on the same page. Vincent mentioned COVID and how it's impacted us, pre-COVID, post-COVID. I think COVID for most of us has hit us like a disaster would hit us in our community. Tornado hit the community. Now the community is recovering post that disaster. And a lot of us are still trying to figure that out. We're still trying to figure out, what do I do next? What happens next? Many of us in our community have lost family members, friends, co-workers to COVID. So we're still trying to adjust. And I think that's created an impact too in animal welfare and how do we move forward. And then I think the last thing I want to say real quick is the focus on human homelessness, especially that homeless population with pets. So when we're talking about being human focused, we're not just talking about how we're helping folks that approach us, but how are we providing resources and support for those individuals that are homeless, who are scared to approach us thinking that we're there to take their pets away, and they're not seeking help. So with that, the next panel member, Vincent.
Thank you, Jorge. And I put that in my notes. We're gonna circle back on that homelessness statement that you made. Next, our next panelist is Kylie Ortega. And Kylie, you can unmute and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Vincent. My name is Kylie. I am the HASS programs coordinator for Fresno Humane Animal Services. I've been there for a little bit over a year now. And I've kind of grown up in the shelter industry in a way. I started volunteering back in the Bay Area where I grew up when I was 10. So I've really seen how this industry has changed over the years. But I think the biggest change has definitely been in the last few years as more shelters are becoming human focused and learning how we can support people as well as pets. Fresno Humane has been pretty focused on helping people, and becoming like a partner with the HASS project has helped us like organize these programs and really like show off how important it is to work with people as well as working with animals. So this program has been really awesome to be a part of, and just to see how much it's changed the industry in the last couple of years.
And real quick, Kylie, like HASS is like your project inside of Fresno's shelter, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So, what? And I don't want to get too deep into it. You know what? I'll save it for the question for later. I'll let Spencer. You
just want to interview Kylie, man. I'm good with that too, Vincent. Come on, man.
No,
it's good stuff. It's good stuff, man.
That is good stuff.
I am Spencer Conover. I'm the Assistant Director of Pasco County Animal Services. We are in Pasco County, Florida, about 30 minutes north of Tampa on the West Coast, near the most beautiful beaches in the world. I've been with Pasco for about 5 years, and we originally jumped on HASS out of a concept like Jorge kind of mentioned earlier. You know, it's been so fun to see where HASS has gone since COVID, but it's impossible to talk about our origins with HASS without talking about COVID. And there was a moment in late March of 2020 where we had 7 animals in the shelter. We had 6 dogs and a cat, and that was it. And it was just, oh my gosh, how do we sustain this? And what we kept finding was, because COVID was scary as hell in the beginning, and people would call and say, hey, I found a dog, what do I do? And we'd be like, dude, we don't know what's going on with this disease. Can you just look for its owner, please? And they would go, oh yeah, sure. And then they'd call us back and say, oh no, don't worry, I found the owner. That happened day after day after day. And finally, one of our people turned around like, man, we should just do this all the time. And our leadership team got together and was like, yeah, we should do this all the time. Find out there's this awesome group out of Austin thinking about doing this all the time. And boom, we jumped in originally as a tier 2 shelter, and then just embraced HASS so much into our culture at our organization that we had to jump in as a tier 1 pilot shelter. And we've seen not only the success of the initial programs that we've implemented, which I'm sure we'll get into later, but the secondary impacts that we've had on our community and our budget and our culture and our organization and our staff. And it's been absolutely incredible to be a part of.
Thank you, Spencer. And as you can see, we have a fabulous set of panelists. It was one of the things that even before I started working as the project director that really impressed me. It's like, wow, how did this project attract some of the such impressive people? And so it really gave me the the confidence to know that this project is not only by the people and for the people, but it represents a cross section of the industry professionals. So let's just get into some questions. How about that? And I'll pose the question, and you just jump in as you see fit. And if somebody doesn't get an opportunity to answer, I'll make sure I cue them. But I want the audience to get a feel for what you do in your community, what your shelter function is. Is it a how does it, what programs you have, like what is the basic approach of your shelter overall, and what is your shelter's function from a government and a community standpoint?
Yeah, I can jump in on that, Vincent. We are the only municipal shelter in Pasco County, Florida. We serve all 7 municipalities and an unincorporated. An interesting thing about our organization is we're right just north of Tampa, and Tampa is very much known for Hillsborough County Pet Resource Center, a large government shelter that partners very closely with one of the largest nonprofit shelters in the state, Humane Society of Tampa Bay. We have a couple of smaller, and Tom Brady, yes, absolutely, and TB, pour one out, good career, thanks for the Super Bowl. But we don't have a large humane society in our county. We have a small SPCA, a small humane society. They do about 400 to 500 animals a year each, and a lot of the times, as the government shelter, we're the ones bailing them out when they say, hey, we're really full. And so it's been interesting to be the agent for positive change in our community, being the government municipal shelter. And we oftentimes talk about how we are a government shelter running nonprofit programs, because we found that a lot of these programs are working and they're benefiting the community as a whole, and somebody's got to do it. And we said, you know what, if there's not going to be a nonprofit to step up to do it, screw it, the government's going to do it then. And we kind of embrace that into our culture.
And how long have you been in this industry, Spencer?
Oh man, I look like I'm 17 years old, but I've been in this industry for almost 13, 14 years now. I started with the Dumb Friends League in Denver, Colorado, and worked with Best Friends Animal Society for several years before returning to my hometown in Tampa. And this is my first experience. I think a lot of, part of the success that we've had has been the diversity within our team and the diversity of backgrounds within our team. I came from the nonprofit world. So when I came to the government municipal shelter, there was a lot of, disbelief about these programs where you can't fix somebody's pet for them for free. Oh, you can't, offer somebody free medical resources. Like, yeah, you can. We're going to do it anyway. So it's been interesting to get that different perspective of backgrounds, because I do have a strong background in nonprofit work within animal welfare, but we have so many people like that on our team, which is been a direct correlation to the success we've had within HASS.
Wow. And what it brought to mind for me is that when I started in 1999, the shelter I started at, there was no nuance to it. It was just an animal control agency. And the nonprofit world, really, I've seen it influence animal shelters across the country, the government shelters, and the government shelters, and I worked in 4 of them. They move a little slower, but we have opened that door for that influence. All right. So who's next? How about Kylie? How about you go next? Tell us about your shelter.
Yeah, similar to Spencer, I started out in nonprofit too, and coming into a shelter that has 2 animal control contracts. It's quite a change. So Fresno Humane, we are a private nonprofit, but we have a contract. We have 2 contracts for animal control, one with the county of Fresno, and we just picked up the city of Fresno just this past July. So that's new to us. We've taken on quite a bit here. We've always had like a a very human-centric program. Like Fresno Humane was basically born just like 7 or 8 years ago by a group of amazing people who have always had this vision of how animal services should be. So I'm pretty lucky to have come into an organization that already has this really amazing mindset about how animal services should be in our community. And then what
Kylie, elaborate on that, the human part, just basically the approach.
Yeah. So the belief that we can help people fix animals for free or for very discounted cost, or help out with medical care, or, offer other resources, pulley systems, like help fixing fences and gates to keep animals contained. Like these are all things that have been a part of the organization from the start. That was just sort of the mindset of why are we going to keep animals out of their homes when we could keep them in their homes with just a little bit of help on the human side.
Well, and let me ask you this, Kylie. So when you discovered that these needs were that when you discover that somebody has that need, is it the animal that walks in the door and says, "Hey, I need a leash," or "I need my fence to be fixed"? Is that how it works? Because some people may not know.
I mean, oftentimes, yes. Sometimes we figure out that people need help because their animal ends up at the shelter, or one of our officers makes contact in the field. They're able to get the animal home and they see why the animal got out in the first place, and they're able to make that contact and figure out what resources are needed there. But other times we do have people that reach out, especially when it comes to needing help with spay and neuter, needing help with veterinary costs. Most of the time those people are reaching out to us, asking for help.
Yeah, so it's not the pet that reaches out, it's the person that reaches out.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. All right. So last but not least, Jorge.
Well, Vincent, I don't want to say how long I've been in animal welfare, but I'm going to say it since you said it. I've been in animal welfare since '92. Very similar to Kylie and Spencer. My career started in nonprofit. I've been at the current organization for 5 years, and it's a government organization. Of course, this is my first time working in government. Our organization was falling apart when I got in. It was, we're all in family here, but it was a dumpster fire. It was bad. And, being there a couple of years and COVID coming around, HASS was just a great opportunity. Oh, I want to be really clear. I don't look 17 like Spencer. I know Spencer said he looks like 17. I do not. But we do see about 6,000 animals in our community annually. We do not have large, SPCA or humane societies to really help our day-to-day functions. And we also have 10 animal control contracts with the cities and towns within our county as well. So for me, I think the big key here is, and I shared this with the superpower icebreaker at our meeting this afternoon, is being a positive disruptor. I think it's looking at things that are negative, or that folks will throw challenges at you saying that will never happen. You could never do that. We tried that in the past, and looking at it from a different lens and listening to others that have or might have ideas that can really solve those problems. So for me, it has really been looking at things through a different lens. And the bigger thing too is being comfortable being uncomfortable, because you're in situations that are just you're gonna get thrown curveballs at you all the time. But for me, it's really about being that positive disruptor in our community, and not going with the flow of this is how it's always been and we've never been able to change things.
On the theme of positive disruptor, could the three of you talk about how, if there was a cultural shift that needed to happen within your organizations, and how you how that was received. Well, not only your organizations, but also in your community in terms of understanding the new approach. Yeah, just talk about that and how that was received, and just give the audience an insight of what recommendations you would make, or just what the story is behind that.
I'll keep going real quick, since I think Spencer and Kylie have touched on it too. It's a change of culture. It's trying to stay away from our community is like this, and our community will never do this, or our community will never believe in this. We're still in the works, right? We're still in discussions of new ideas and how to change things, or to work with different partners in our community to think differently when it comes to animals. But also the key for me personally is not just focusing on the animal, it's focusing on the human. That animal's not going to care for themselves, so we need to figure out how we also help the human in working on partnerships. I'm blessed to have a county that really supports animal services. We have $50,000 budget that is for spay neuter vouchers. Our animal control officers are armed with these spay neuter vouchers as they're going through and talking to folks. We have 3 community clinics that are armed with these vouchers, that when people call and they can't afford the spay and they need the spay, the vouchers are used. And then we just had a commissioner promote a $20,000 project for community cats. So when you look at, like Spencer said, we're a county, we're government, and here we are able to put all of these resources and all this funding in order to make our community better, so we see less animals coming into the shelter. But to your question, Vincent, it's still a dialogue. It's still ongoing conversations. I mean, we're just scratching the surface. But more of these town halls where we can really share the information globally and not so insular within just in a community, I think it helps us just spread that message and share how important HASS is, and just thinking differently with the elements that HASS has.
You want to go ahead, Kylie?
Yes. Trying to think of what I can add that Jorge didn't already cover. Would you mind reiterating just your main points again that you want me to cover, so I don't ramble
Just
on too much?
how you within your agency, was there a shift in philosophy or culturally inside of your organization, and what was that? Just tell us the story of that, if it needed to happen.
Yeah, so we recently grew big time. When I first started a year ago, we had maybe 15 staff members, and after moving into a new county shelter and taking over the city, that's exploded. So we had this opportunity where we could pretty much educate all of our new staff members on HASS and what it means and what we're doing as a shelter, as they were being onboarded, which was amazing. So as far as like a huge culture shift within our organization, we didn't really have a lot of issues with that. I mean, we're still kind of like sharing the programs that we're doing with new staff members and how things work now. I think the culture shift within our community is where we're struggling. As I mentioned, having taken over the city contract recently, the previous organization that had been doing animal services for the city of Fresno had been doing it for 75 years. So the community was very accustomed to the way that they were doing things, and not necessarily having a lot of human support services available to them. So that is definitely where the culture shift is needing to happen with our organization, just having more opportunities for people, more resources, us wanting to actually help people keep their animals in their homes. Our community is definitely going to take some time to learn that, and that's where we're kind of struggling, but we're getting there, getting the messaging out.
And for us, it was twofold. It was the staff and then the community, right? The staff was difficult in the beginning. It was why is this money going to why is this person getting services for free? This person should get a ticket, right? Like, I don't understand why we're doing, and it came down a lot of the times, like if you look at root cause analysis and kept asking why, for the staff, it kept coming down to the money, right? It kept coming down to the money. I'm like, why are you guys worried about the money? Like, you're veterinary technicians and animal care techs, like, let me worry about the money. The money's there, right? The money will be fine. And what we were finding was, and it was great for the staff to see, was because we were providing these services, our length of stay was going down, and therefore we were saving expenses rather than spending expenses. So at the end of the year, I was like, hey guys, do you want to buy cool new anesthesia machines or brand new control poles? Because I got a bunch extra. It came to a staff meeting. It was essentially like, does anybody want the chemical again? No. Okay, we'll keep this going. And then public, we really on the law of diffusion of innovation. We had our innovators and our early adopters, right? We had people who just got it, right? We had people who were like, yep, they're helping people, that's cool. Every community is going to deal with the laggards, right? It's the people that call you up and you say, my tax dollars say you got to take in this stray dog, and damn it, you're taking a stray dog, right? But the problem is we have in this industry is we focus so much on the minority group that we forget the majority, which don't know another. And we have to focus on that group one way or another, convincing them that this is the right thing to do. And so I think what the problem is, a lot of organizations spend so much time focusing on those 3 or 4 advocates who are really, really vocal. Yes, Mrs. Whatever. Yes, Mr. Whatever. We'll get to that. It's focusing on them and it says, hey, what do you guys offer? Hey, is this good? Hey, what's HASS? And having the right communication at that moment to explain, which is really, really successful for it. It's changed the culture in the community too, because then we ride that success in telling our story back to the community.
Thank you so much, Spencer. And I'm gonna ask one more question real quick, because I want our audience to hear from this panel. Tell us from your standpoint, what does we have this clash, and I think Jorge, you may have mentioned it, just about who should have a pet, who should own a pet, whether they be homeless or poor or rich or whatever the case may be. You tell this audience from your vantage point, who do you think should have a pet?
Yeah, I'm no one to tell anybody you shouldn't have a pet, right? I think there's, if you look at animal services, our responsibility is public safety, public health, right? And we have cruelty in that piece. So there is that line of when an animal is cruelly treated. But when we are out in the community and our role is to provide resources and information, I think we should approach things like what Spencer was talking about. I think we should approach things differently and just look at things through a different lens and try to find out the root cause of why that individual is there. We in the past have just focused on the animal, and we see the animal, and the animal is living with someone who doesn't have shelter. Well, the animal doesn't have shelter. All of a sudden, we're wanting to confiscate that animal. So I with our team and the field services team, and well, actually all of our animal services team, is that we try to look at things differently and approach things from different angles to make sure that we're being fair. But who am I to tell someone who does not have shelter or appropriate shelter, what we would consider, hey, you don't have a house, that they cannot have that dog or have those dogs? We just need to make sure that they're good and they're provided with the resources. I mean, we're partnering with organizations like Partners Ending Homelessness, human homelessness in our community. And when their counselors are out in the community talking to these individuals who are homeless and they come across individuals that have pets, they let us know, and then we provide those counselors with resources to help them give those resources to the individuals that have those pets. That helps them build rapport and trust with those individuals that are homeless. And if they need medical care, if they need attention, we start building that trust where these pets can actually go into temporary housing where they can go get the medical care they need, and then we can reunite them. We have a couple of boarding facilities in our community that will do free boarding for these pets that belong to individuals that are homeless that are seeking, medical attention or have to be sheltered somewhere for whatever reason. So to answer your question, who am I to say you can't have that dog? Yeah, it's going to take a lot for me to say you can't have that dog. But we have to approach situations differently. No two situations are the same.
I think for us in Pasco, I mean, we've understood and we come to an understanding as an organization that there's always going to be scumbags and there's always going to be people that need tickets and there's always going to be people that need their animals seized. But the problem in our industry for so long is we think that way too often, and we have to practice the model that people are inherently good. People are inherently good, right? And so it was really tough for a lot of our staff to come full circle on that. But I think as you build that culture with your staff, it comes through in the programs and the services that you offer. And so when somebody does approach us with an issue or we see something on the surface, it's not just immediate judgment. It is, hey, let's see how we can help first. Oh, he's actually a scumbag who's being cruel to his animals. Okay, cool. We'll take that step. Or no, this is somebody who needs education. This is somebody who needs direction. This is somebody who needs hope. This is somebody who needs purpose. And when we're willing as an organization to give that to that person with their pets.
Having a pretty large homeless population in Fresno County, we actually know some of the people in our area personally, some people that are homeless and they have dogs and they bring them in and they ask for resources when they need resources. And they're some of the most loved, well-kept dogs that we know. Like 2 of them are pretty chunky and they ride around on the back of this guy's bike, and they're wonderful. And income status should not matter when it comes to caring for a pet. If you're willing to care for that animal and you reach out and you need help and know where to go, by all means. Like, we're not in any place to be trying to take animals away from people that have good homes when we already have, overflowing shelters of dogs that don't necessarily have people that care. So we feel pretty strongly about that at our organization.
Yeah, any person that loves their pet should have, or wants one, should have one if they are in a position to love that pet. And what does that take? That just takes having a heart and having that want to have one. And it's up to us to be that facilitator of how that happens, how we create that joy in the community that comes from the 70% of households, and even the houseless people who have pets, which I agree with this panel wholeheartedly. The whether you have a house or you live outside, I've just seen some very inspiring bonds of love between a pet and the human that they are that they love and that loves them. This has been a great discussion. It was way too short. What we're going to do now is I want to open up the floor for questions.